All right, so I don't really know a ton of the background of this, but apparently Vivek Ramaswamy and Khanna had a debate today in New Hampshire, which I don't know why. I just I don't know why. Goron. Okay, well if his name is Goron, he gets a pass. But they were at the same event, and they had a short little debate. We're gonna watch it, see how Khanna does. Khanna, one of the more progressive members of Congress, and Vivek Ramaswamy, one of the more insane candidates for president on the Republican ticket. Let's take a look.
Staff at the State Department, staff at the Homeland Security. First of all, we need people there more than 8 years to understand what's going on in Ukraine and China. I'll tell you something. I have humility.
Okay, I did not know the audio was this bad, because I'm not a filthy pre-watcher, okay?
I've been on the Armed Services Committee. I've been there 7 years. I learned so much. So much.
Is it going to be this bad the entire time?
For a second and just appreciate what we're about to witness, because it's so rare in modern American politics these days. This debate will have 0 commercial breaks. There aren't 9 other people on the stage. We aren't asking the participants to solve Middle East peace, give their guardrails for AI, or solve Social Security in 45 seconds or less. And if I may, we're also going to have the chance to be serious for once and actually flesh out some issues. To honor their commitment to do something different and better, I'm going to make my own similar commitment as a moderator today. There will be no process questions, no political horse race questions, no hypothetical questions, no gotcha questions.
Wait, no hypotheticals? Why? We're not going to trick you with our sneaky hypotheticals.
And gasp if you will, I will not make a single question or reference to Donald Trump. Now, you may, that's fine, but I won't.
We are going to speed this up, though.
I want to quickly go over how this hour will proceed. These gentlemen have identified 5 topics they want to discuss. They are the following: the economy, foreign affairs, political reform, climate change, and the future of America.
Okay, I only care about 2 of those. Let's see if we can get the foreign affairs and political reform.
Term limits. It is, I think, regrettable to be carrying the growth in the labor market. Here's
Do one more question.
Mostly because we already know their economy answers. Like, Vivek is going to be just fucking crazy. Okay.
Responsible and
Here, Obama's
earnings, the more it increases wages. It's so obvious a point that we want to fund public education. I was surprised someone had to do a study about it.
Don't do it through the federal government.
But you do it, and you do it in a way that is going to invest in our country. If we want to beat China and we're not investing in education, well, we've got an $800 billion.
Don't do it through the federal government.
$800 billion defense
Let's move on.
budget.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, Vivek
Vivek
is like we should ban green energy and just drill baby drill. That's his entire thing.
This is
Good. You've been good.
Foreign affairs is next. Okay. This question is for Congressman Khanna. Some foreign policy doctrines we can put on a bumper sticker. The Monroe Doctrine when it comes to the Western Hemisphere, Obama's pivot to Asia, America First, didn't say his name.
George Washington. would be his name.
LB.
Okay,
1796.
fair enough. That would be, yeah, fair enough. Okay. Congressman, if you were to simplify your vision of American foreign policy on a bumper sticker, what would it be?
Well, that's a tough question. Responsible engagement. Responsible engagement. And I'll tell you where I think Vivek and I differ, because I want to be on this broad picture. I started my political career running against the Iraq War. I got crushed, 19% of the vote, but I was the first anti-Iraq war primary. I opposed the extended stay in Afghanistan. I opposed the strikes in Libya. I am not for forays overseas militarily that don't make sense in our strategic interests. And I led, with Bernie Sanders, the effort on the war powers to stop the bombing, supporting the Saudi bombing of Yemen. But that doesn't mean isolationism. That doesn't mean that we should not be involved. We need to be involved in the Middle East. We need to be involved in helping bring peace in the Middle East and having the Palestinians and Israelis involved in restarting the peace process. We need to be involved in the
We'll get into
Pacific.
that. Obviously, we're going to get into that. Bumper sticker.
American interests. Here's the answer. I have one moral obligation as a father. It is to my 2 sons and to my family. I have one moral obligation as your next president, and that is to the American citizens here in our homeland, period. And I think we are more likely to stay out of World War III if every nation behaved the same way, because
Dude, you need to read up a little bit on the prelude to World War I, okay? You need to reread the history books on that one, because that's basically what set the stage for World War I. It did not go well.
World War III is not in any nation's interest. We sleepwalk our way into World War.
Yeah, but the issue is, like, he's correct. World War III isn't in any nation's interest. However, individual acting states can act in their self-interest in the short term and immediate term and not be able to predict the knock-on effects of different action or of, like, independent actors, like non-governmental groups that, I don't know, carry out an assassination and trigger suddenly a bunch of defensive treaties that put everyone at war with everyone. You know, that can happen, actually, quite often.
War. Let's study history. World War I. How did killing the Archduke Ferdinand result in major conflict across the world that killed millions upon millions?
He even references it! You should know that!
Vague red lines that nobody knew about. So my view is that we agree on staying out of...
Okay, we agree to stay out of everyone else's business. And also, no one is allowed to make diplomatic agreements. No, we won't have any diplomatic agreements. Good luck with that, brother. We live in a global world.
Iraq or an extended stay in Afghanistan that didn't advance American interests. But what disappoints me is that so many of the Democrats, and also Republicans, who may have agreed with that in the past, are now marching us into those same conflicts. Just because Russia is bad does not mean Ukraine is good. 11 opposition parties banned by the government in power. Russian-speaking regions that are occupied. Either you believe in democracy or you don't. In the Middle East, I worry about another prolonged...
Either you believe in democracy or you don't. That's kind of what's at issue with the invasion of Ukraine, my guy. What are you talking about? Either you could say the same thing. Either you believe in democracy or you don't. Therefore, you should support Ukraine. Boom. There you go.
Conflict with U.S. presence. This is not what advances the American interests, especially when our top enemy is actually communist China. So to sum up my foreign policy in a nutshell, be what Reagan said about the USSR, I'll say about China. We win, they lose.
Yeah, and you know, China doesn't have any allies or defensive treaties either. What? Are you talking? Like, if the United States stood alone in the world, chat, like, China has a series of, like, military alliances by which they could overpower the United States. Like, you guys understand that basic concept, right? Because, like, this guy doesn't. Oh yeah, if China declared war on us, it would just be China, and then the United States would defend itself against just China.
That's what this comes down to, but every other conflict from Ukraine to the Middle East that we're bogged down in, that dilutes our focus on what actually threatens the American homeland. Avoid World War III.
Yeah, what actually threatens the American homeland? You mean, like, things like the United States being dependent on, like, foreign materials, like, I don't know, rare earth minerals mined out of, like, Africa, or, like, I don't know, semiconductors from Taiwan. Like, again, no state is, like, super self-sufficient in the current day. If you want to have, like, cutting-edge technology, like, you can't get by with just your own stuff. You know, North Korea is a great example of this. North Korea, incredibly isolationist. Like, they still find that they need foreign exports from China. Oh, that's true, Salmon Moose. In my head, I was thinking, oh, China would attack Taiwan, but Vivek Ramaswamy is basically just like, yeah, let China have Taiwan. That's fine.
declare independence from China, and then protect the homeland right here at home in the U.S. from border defenses to cyber and super EMP defenses to missile defenses. That's actually what we're missing, and that's where my focus would be.
You wanna
American
make-
interests.
Yeah, I want to.
Yeah, his concern is against super EMP. Okay.
We won't get to other things, but continue.
I saw the Republican debate, and I don't want to be like Nikki Haley and just put you down in some way because I didn't think that was fair. I want to actually engage you to try to understand, convince you of my point of view. American interest requires American leadership. I believe you're sincere about not wanting China to win. You know, I ask you, meet with our CIA director. I know you don't love the agencies, but William Burns is respected across the aisle, and he'll tell you that the biggest deterrent for China today to invade Taiwan is what's happening in Ukraine. So you want us to win and prevent China from invading Taiwan? We need to make sure that Ukraine isn't gobbled up by Putin. Now,
so I respectfully disagree. I agree with you on Ukraine. I disagree with you the way we do it.
Let me flesh this out, and then I want you to respond, because there's actually a deep difference, and I want to actually engage instead of just saying, oh, someone doesn't know foreign policy. Let's engage on the ideas. Here is the point on Ukraine.
Well, a super EMP shield Paladin lost is, you know, when a child on, like, the playground, like, invents, like, their invincibility shield, and they go, it's like that, but on a much larger scale. Basically, the super EMP shield is deployed by the Statue of Liberty, who begins to make complex and intricate gestures with their hands, much like a Naruto character.
If you allow Putin to take some of Ukraine, what are we going to do? Should we say to Xi Jinping, take some of Taiwan and that's going to be okay? Of course not. Now, you want to reverse Nixon's strategy. I understand that. But you have to look at the conditions that were there when Nixon did that. The Soviet Union had 39 battalions on China's border. Mao came to Nixon because they were concerned. They had a border war in 1969.
I'm well aware of the history.
Yeah, so there was a totally different construct. Right now, you've got Putin saying that Xi Jinping and them meeting 42 times, they're best friends. The idea that China is dependent on Putin.
Cracks in the armor.
China is dependent on Putin for energy, and the idea that appeasing Putin by giving him some Ukraine is going to get him out of the China alliance and go to the United States is just not realistic.
So here's where I think it does take an outsider to bring some sanity to our foreign policy, where it's been missing for a very long time. Here's how we're actually paving the way for China to go after Taiwan. Think about this. Put yourself in Xi Jinping's shoes. Right now, Russia and China are in a military alliance with one another. Russia has greater nuclear capabilities and hypersonic
They're
missiles.
Not in a military alliance.
Since 2001,
there's no formal Russian.
Let me finish, because this is an issue I happen to know a lot about. They're running joint military exercises across right off the coast of Alaska. A 2001 treaty of good neighborliness and cooperation. They're treaty bound in a 2001 treaty and a 2022 strategic no limits partnership, running joint military exercises today. So now back to the point. Xi Jinping's bet right now is that the U.S. won't want to go to war with two allied nuclear superpowers at the same time. But if we get Russia out of its alliance with China, we have eliminated the single greatest threat to the U.S., that's the Russia-China alliance. And
yeah, there is an informal relationship between Russia and China. They have economic agreements, but there is no military alliance that is formalized between Russia and China.
Xi Jinping will have to think twice before he goes after Taiwan. So my view is that we can use the end of the Ukraine war as a chance to do what we should have done long ago, pull Russia apart from China, say that NATO will never admit Ukraine to NATO. That is a commitment that we made back in 1990.
It's not, and also, we couldn't admit Ukraine into NATO prior to the Russian invasion because Ukraine had contested territory, which automatically means that they cannot join NATO. They, as a country, can take steps to get closer and, like, make joining NATO more rapid if that territorial dispute ever is resolved. But until it is resolved, they can't join NATO. That's how NATO works. It's literally written into the laws of how NATO works.
James Baker made that to Gorbachev, that NATO would not expand 1 inch past East Germany. We haven't kept that.
And you know what? Wasn't written down, wasn't agreed to. A lot of things are said during negotiation and aren't in the finalized agreement. This man comes from the business world. He should know this.
That commitment. Keep and honor that commitment, but require in return that Russia and China split up. There are kinks in their armor, and I can talk about what they are. Russia sending weapons to India.
There are kinks in their armor, and I can tell you what they are: foot, chaser, and leather. Okay.
To Vietnam, not allowing China to finish a railroad. There are kinks in that armor. Now is our moment to pull it apart, but it's not going to come from somebody in the establishment of either party. It's going to take an outsider to get that deal
We have to deploy the leather daddies, and that's how we pull in the Russians.
done, as I will.
We got to move on a little bit quickly. I want to
I
get
go on very quickly because I do think
We've been
it's-
very quick, but I was
Yeah,
trying to help you out.
I mean,
a different vision of foreign
may
policy
that may
for
be
both
your
parties.
view, and maybe you
That's what I'll get
disagree
done.
with every expert, but every
I don't
expert,
trust, I don't
but
bow the
every-
knee to the experts.
Yeah,
I think
no, maybe.
independently about what actually needs to be
That
done.
may be your view.
I don't listen to experts. Experts don't know anything about foreign policy. Fuck experts.
That's what we need in this country.
Let me just finish. I just think you should, at some point, get a briefing, because you're running, you have a big platform, get a briefing from William Burns, others. They will tell you that standing up to Putin and not appeasing him is actually the biggest deterrent for Xi Jinping. They've studied this. And
Again, Vivek Ramaswamy is a fascist. Like, his anti-intellectual streak goes very deep. You know, like, dude just straight up is like, I'm not gonna listen to, like, my intelligence agencies when they come to me with expert information. Why would I listen to people who know things about things?
the idea that Xi Jinping, who's saying that there's no more intimate friend than Putin, and Putin, who harbors resentment since the end of the Soviet Union with the United States, the idea that we're somehow going to split his friendship with Xi Jinping and get him to be friends with us without compromising every value America has.
And with
is
respect, I just don't
unrealistic.
think that when it comes to a U.S. and we're in different seats here,
Yeah.
but when it comes to a U.S. president, I think we need a U.S. president who is purposefully skeptical, listens to the expert class, listens with an open
That's
mind,
all
as
I'm
I do.
asking. Listen,
But
listen.
You just said fuck experts. What are you talking about, dude? One sentence he's like, I'm not going to listen to the experts. I don't need experts to tell me what to do. And then he's like, as president, I would need experts.
to be able
Take a
to,
meeting.
as Nixon did it. We've done plenty of that. But actually, I have actual independent grounded knowledge to cut through the BS that comes out of that pro-war bureaucratic state to say, no,
Where'd that
this
come
is
from?
how we're actually going to advance
That's not me.
American interests rather
That's in the video. That's not
than
me.
the interests of the entrenched D.C. bureaucracy.
We are
As you
going
say, that's going to
way
take a lead
over
from the
time.
outside.
This is
That's
so good. I love this.
Good
This is
stuff, though.
Great. I will note we have friends.
Oh, that was weird. Did he just like touch the moderator?
Democracy.
We are
As you
going
say, that's going to take a
way
lead from
over
the
time.
outside.
This is
That's
so good. I love this. This
Good
is
stuff, though.
Oh God, why? Don't do that.
great. I will note we have friends from diplomats from Taiwan in the audience with us coming up from Boston today.
I would like to note that we have diplomats from Taiwan here in the audience today, and Vivek's just like, ooh, awkward.
So let's pick a let's.
Excellent question. Good stuff. Just dead silence. He's actually not saying anything right now. He's just miming it to see how good their perception skills are. It's turned into a mime battle. Is this where the audio? Yeah. Oh my God.
Against America. He deposed well Hamas leaders on stakes and at the Gaza border. And I guess this is
If Israel wants to do that, they should be able to do it
Yeah,
for the
this
leaders.
is where I think we have a difference just in terms of
If Israel wants to impale their enemies on stakes, they should. Hey, Metal Kitty Mom. Seems like the perfect chance for you to do your voiceover work. Yeah, maybe. I just like... You know, if they want to claim somebody's a Hamas fighter, they should be able to put them in Iron Maidens. Hell, back in my day, you know, I remember when England would draw and quarter people. That should really be brought back too. Like, what are you saying, dude? Remember when they'd cut off your hand for stealing? They should bring that back. What are you doing, dude?
leadership. You know, that you said, oh, I'm carrying the water for Biden. I guess I view the world in more nuance. I was Bernie Sanders' co-chair, but I can say what Biden did well.
Have you looked at pornography? In Vivek Ramaswamy's world, you'd have your eyes gouged out.
And what he should do better. And we need that nuance on foreign policy. There was a reason when Barack Obama did the single best thing in getting Osama bin Laden. He didn't parade it. He deposed of the remains in the sea because he didn't want to incite more violence against America or the world. And if we were to put Hamas leaders on stakes, if Israel were to do it, we should tell them absolutely not. Not just because it violates the
Well, I mean, to be clear, America isn't putting people on stakes. But Israel totally should. I disagree with your position that they shouldn't put people on stakes. What are you talking about, dude? What, should we bring back crucifixion too? Should we just start crucifying people? What an absolute nut job.
A convention, because already Christopher Wray saying there are heightened threats to Jewish Americans, Muslim Americans here. Why do we want to inflame the threats? And you have a very important platform, Vivek. I mean, look, you're in the top 5 presidential candidates. I think
thank you for the $5 dono.
Take that back, or at least call for some kind of reason. One point, though, on Israel and where we do disagree on the involvement. I agree with you. We should not be in a ground war. We should not get involved in the war. We need American leadership. We need the leadership that your party, actually, James Baker, started with the Oslo Accords. If America is involved and we can move to a 2-state solution, Bill Clinton almost completed it at Camp David. Our big mistake is that we ignored the Palestinian issue. We tried to do the Abraham Accords around the Palestinians. That is not a plausible solution for a just peace. I don't want China leading in the Middle East. I don't want Russia leading in the Middle East. I want our aid to Israel, our aid to Egypt, so that America leads. And I'll tell you something, I don't know if it'll be Joe Biden, but an American president is the best shot with American leadership for peace in the Middle East.
See, my goal isn't to lead in the Middle East. My goal is to lead here at home. And I do not think that further deep engagement in the Middle East advances our interests. So Israel is an ally. What does that actually mean? You let an ally defend themselves as they deem fit. So my point was I laid out an array of options.
Well, no. Because you need to determine whether or not you want to continue being their ally. You know, it's a two-way relationship, right? Like, if they're acting fucking crazy, you don't have to continue being their ally.
That I wouldn't get in Israel's way if they wanted to pursue. But when it comes to the United States of America, our objectives are how do we protect our homeland here? The thing I'm worried about is if that can happen in Israel, and that was a security breach of a large scale we have not seen in 50 years. It was something that Israel missed. If Israel can miss that, that can happen right here at home in the United States of America. So I could care less about leading in the Middle East. I care more about protecting Americans right here at home. And the last point I want to make is on engagement in the Middle East. We actually screwed up. We screwed this one up. And here's something that maybe you'll agree with me on this, but neither party's talking about, and both parties need to own up to. Almost undoubtedly, one of the catalysts, and you won't hear this from the media, ask yourself why, but they won't tell you I'm wrong about it either. One of the catalysts for what happened was the U.S., led by Biden, but Republican senators along with him, leading discussions about nuclear technology transfer to Saudi Arabia, badly upsetting what is an uncomfortable but at least existent balance of power in the Middle East. The fact that that happened this summer, and then October 7th you have an attack you haven't seen in 50 years on Israel when it's in the middle of those discussions with Saudi Arabia, we have to confront the reality that every time we stick our nose into the Middle East, it's like somebody waddling into a glass shop. We think we're helping. It's a bull in a china shop. We make things worse, and we leave a mess behind. That's Iraq, that's Afghanistan, and that will not happen again on my watch. And so this responsible engagement, I believe it comes from a good place. I really do believe that, and I think it is earnest. But that's become the consensus of both parties in Washington, D.C., that I think it's going to take an outsider coming in and calling out the truth for what it is. Our engagement in the Middle East has been horrific in its results. And
it's funny that he doesn't mention that there's literally a lobbying group dedicated to ensuring the U.S. involvement in the Middle East, specifically in to back up Israel. You know, it's interesting he doesn't mention the lobbying aspect of this.
The definition of insanity is doing the same thing again and expecting a different result. Let's get out, let our true ally defend itself, and then move on to what actually protects the American interest.
Like, first of all,
Let's wrap up with this.
Yeah, and I imagine you may have misspoken, but you would agree. There is no...
No, Abu Sal. The Saudi Arabian government got the nuclear information from Trump? Well, you're telling me the Saudi Arabian royal family gave $2 billion to Jared Kushner's fledgling investment firm against the protests of their own accountants? And they're basically the only investor in that firm? And that's not based on merit? Why, I never.
Excuse there is no justification. There is no policy
Of course
failure
there's no
to
justification.
explain Hamas's brutal terrorist attack on Israeli civilians.
That's why I said we
has
should hold them
nothing-
accountable.
That
Up
has
to heads
nothing
on
to do
stakes
with
if
Joe
Israel wants
Biden's
to.
policy. It has nothing to do with Republican
that's
policy.
not entirely true.
That is to do with Hamas's terrorism that needs to be condemned.
So are you in
unequivocally.
favor of this
The
Saudi
second-
nuclear transfer?
the-
You think
the-
that's entirely unrelated to this? Just for on the record, you think that has nothing to do with this?
I'm not in favor of the Saudi nuclear transfer, but I don't think that justifies or excuses.
doesn't justify it.
Oh,
Of course it
excuses
doesn't
Hamas.
justify it.
I'm not sure it's a transfer,
it's American run.
Let me just
But do you think
finish.
these are relevant issues to
Let-
discuss?
let me-
The
yes,
Saudi nuclear
yes,
transfer,
but not
the
in
fact
the
that it happened this
context-
summer,
not in the context
is something we
of
have to be able to talk about.
Not in the context of Hamas. But let me point this out, and this is where I believe you love this country. I do. I believe
I think we all do.
I
We're
believe
here. I think
you've
we do.
achieved in some way the American dream. But why do you have such an impoverished vision of America that the only thing America is going to do is a provincial sense of its own interests? I don't even think it's in our own interest if we disengage. But don't you think America has an obligation to care about human rights? When we're seeing the bombings of people in Gaza dying and don't have food and water, shouldn't that be an American obligation? Your Republican speaker is putting a bill with not.
I mean, Vivek, Ro Khanna is correct here in asking this question, but it's a bit short-sighted because Vivek's just going to be like, no, I don't think that's an American obligation. I don't think people in Gaza are America's obligation. He's just going to be like, nah, I don't care. I don't give a shit.
Not a single dollar to people in Gaza. You know what makes America great? It's that we believe in the dignity and human rights of people around the world. It's that we're different. It's
Well,
that
the thing that makes
it's that
America
we
great is
care.
that we are that example
we
here at
care.
home.
It's that, yes, we're that example, but you're taking foreign policy blunders, and I agree with you, Vivek, on those blunders. But the answer to those blunders is not to retreat into an isolationism. The answer is not to forget.
Oh,
what
yeah,
we did
yeah,
in World
Charlie.
War II in liberating
Saudi
the
Arabia
world. The
let
answer is
Trump
not to
touch
forget what we
the,
did in
the
Cold
orb.
War in standing up for freedom. It's to say, let's learn from the mistakes of not overextending.
See, I'm
and
a
let's
George
have
Washington,
responsible
America
leadership.
First conservative, all right? The George Washington vision, his 1796 farewell speech, is the way we set an example for the world is to be that example right here at home. What hope does the free world have if America itself is weak at home as we are today? A border crisis of historic proportion. You have an
Yeah, we're weak at home. That's why we're a global superpower.
illegal immigration crisis that threatens this country right here at home. An economy that is struggling that people haven't seen since the Jimmy Carter era. A dependence on China for our modern way of life in a way that we never did on the USSR. So we need to be that shining city on a hill. The way we do it is by being strong at home, setting that example for the rest of the world.
And I
Let our
guess I'm
allies
gonna-
defend themselves. That is what makes America
Look, I love
great, and
George
that is what
Wash-
makes America itself, and that is what would make George Washington proud. And that's the standard I use, is whether the founder of this country, if he sees what we're doing today, would he be proud or would
What?
he be appalled?
Well,
I think Washington
I mean, George Washington would see a bunch of, like, free black and brown people and be absolutely aghast. What are you talking about, dude? What are you talking about? Yeah, my standard is whether or not George Washington would be proud. George Washington would look at a car and call it witchcraft, you old coot. Like, what are you talking about?
would be appalled,
your point, we'll
and we
move
need to make our founding fathers
I mean,
proud again. That's
George
what I believe.
Washington obviously won the Revolutionary War, but the person, this is why maybe you should shift.
George Washington would call his local slave catcher on you. Like, what are you talking about?
Switch to the Democrats. But the person who did both was FDR. You know, he could walk and chew gum at the same time. That was a Democrat, by the way, who led the free world and got us out of the Depression because he didn't believe in gutting the state. He believed in actually having the state work with the private sector to industrialize America, and he believed American values could be held up abroad, and he fought for human rights. He was the most successful president of the 20th century, and that, to me, is the model.
Okay. So we saw your differences very clearly on the economy and on foreign policy. We're running over time. One area where you, I think, do agree on is political reform. Yes. Congressman Khanna, you have a new bill.
Okay. I'm bored of this. I don't actually want to talk about political reform because I can sum up their positions. Ro Khanna wants things to be slightly more progressive. Vivek wants to end democracy. There you go. I summarized it for you. We don't have to we don't really have to go into that.